story. The 9/11 one is pretty interesting, actually. It's a huge part of the country. I mean, I think it's like maybe a third of the population or half the population. The activists in it, the people in the center of it, as far as I can tell, very few of them are people with any record or involvement in political activism, doing anything. Maybe a couple here and there. Most of them are just drawn into it. And, and they have factoids too. Like somebody found nanothermite, whatever the hell that is, on the bottom of Building 7 or whatever. Okay. I have no idea what it means or if it means anything. But that's the core of a large part of the evidence that was done by the Bush administration. Now, the people who are writing about this, they are experts in physics and civil engineering on the basis of an hour on the internet. Okay, so you spend an hour on the internet, you become a super expert in civil engineering and physics, and you learn what nanothermite is, and so on. And it's kind of like, I mean, I don't have to tell you what it takes to understand something about physics. It's not an hour on the internet. They've managed to collect a very small scattering of architects and one or two people who are supposed to be scientists and a couple of others who write articles in the Journal of 9/11 Studies and maybe sometimes in an online journal somewhere. And so, okay, that proves that the scientific world is with us. And then comes along a big story. There's some obvious questions. Like, suppose the Bush administration did it. Why would they blame Saudis? Are they insane? I mean, they wanted to invade Iraq, right? Everybody agrees with that. So why don't they blame Iraqis? Well, okay, if they had blamed Iraqis, open and shut case. The whole country's for you. You get a UN resolution, and NATO supports you. You just go ahead and invade Iraq. Since they blamed Saudis, therefore harming themselves, that's their closest ally, they had to go jump through hoops to try to invent stories about weapons of mass destruction and connections to Al-Qaeda and all this other thing. They finally invaded Iraq. So, are they lunatics? I mean, that's one possibility, of course. You got another explanation for why they should blame Saudis?
The 9/11 person would say, yes, because they're very, very slow.
They're very devious. Yeah, that's exactly what you get. It would have been too obvious if they'd blamed Iraqis, so they had to do it some other way. Yeah, you can you can find answers to anything if you try hard enough. And huge efforts are going into this. Nothing is ever going to happen. They tried it for 7 years. They never indicted Bush. Of course, we're never going to. They go on for another 50 years. It's never going to have any effect. It does have an effect. It diverts a lot of energy and effort from trying to do something like, say, stop the war in Iraq. But of course, that takes effort and it's costly and so on. They also feel extremely brave because it's so risky to write a note on the internet saying, I think Bush is a really bad guy. Wow, you're practically in Guantanamo. And then they can find some guy who, instead of teaching his courses, taught about this stuff and therefore wasn't rehired, which is normal. And I would have never been rehired if I'd done it. I taught courses on this kind of stuff, but in my spare time, you have some duties at the university. But you can put all this stuff together and get some story. So you're feeling very brave and bold, and then come stories about the reasons why people like me don't go along. We're secret CIA agents. We're, I think the phrase is left gatekeepers. There's a category of left gatekeepers. The government inserts into the popular movements people who pretend to be critical, but they're really gatekeepers. They're just trying to stop the real criticism. Bush put the bombs in Building 7 and so on. And you can build up big stories like that, and a lot of people believe them. I mean, it's a little bit like believing that the reason for why my life is collapsing is because the rich liberals who own the corporations are giving everything away to illegal immigrants. It's an answer too. You can find some factoids about that. But people who are, kind of at a loss, they don't trust anything rightly. They don't trust institutions. They think everybody's lying to them. Their lies are no good. Nothing makes any sense. Okay, these things have a certain appeal. They, like Rush Limbaugh, they have an internal logic. Maybe they don't make, And if you don't understand what an explanation is, a collection of factoids is an explanation.
There's one part of it that is pretty striking, at least to me, which is if 30 or 40% of the United States population believes that Bush did it, I mean, obviously it's ludicrous, but 30 to 40% of the population believes he did it. Well, that means there's virtually nothing that the left can say to that 30, 40% of the United States that's worse. I mean, how bad can you get, right? So then you have to ask, why is that 30, 40% not doing anything, given that they think they live in whatever it is that they think?
Yeah, they think they're run by a mass murderer who wants to kill the American people.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next topic.
But it is interesting because it says, what do you have to do to talk to that sector of people, not about 9/11, but about changing the world that they live in?
I ask a lot of people that. So, you think you're being run by a maniac who wants to kill all the Americans, why don't you do anything about it? The answer is always the same. It's hopeless.
Yeah, that's
There's nothing we can do. I mean, we're just victims of some powerful force.
But it is an important answer.
Because it says something to us about what our agenda has to be. We have to overcome that.
You have to say, look, there are things you can do about the real problems. First of all,
Convince
figure out
them
what the real problems are. Then you can do something about them. But of course, that's that for the person you're talking to, that's a much harder choice.
Sure.
It's easier to say, I can't do anything, I give up. It's easier to say that than to say, look, there are a lot of things I can do, and then go ahead and do them, and they really are risky, and so on. It's that way with a lot of things. I mean, take, say,
It's very graphic.
this one's very graphic. There are a lot of others, not quite this graphic, but, I mean, take, say, the Israeli lobby story. It's extremely convenient to believe that the Israeli lobby controls the United States.
It's out of control.
First of all, what can I do? The Jews are so powerful, I can't do anything. The other thing is, it preserves American innocence. So we are the city on the hill. It's just that we're being led around by these Jews. What can we do? And in many ways, it's a very attractive position. I mean, it falls apart as soon as you look at it, obviously, but it doesn't make any difference. And it does attract a lot of people on the left, a lot of people.